Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of The Democratic View. I'm the hostess. My name is Phyllis Italiano, and with me I have an old friend who has been here before. It's Charles Ehren, who is the Executive Director?
Vice Chairman.
Vice Chairman of the Quiet Skies Coalition, a group that we have come to know and love here on the East End.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, it's a big issue, Charles, before we start on our issue, I wanted to ask you, just because I forgot, where you born and raised, and what's your background?
Well, born and raised in New York City, went to college and law school in New York City, practiced law for about a decade in a corporate firm.
In Manhattan?
Oh, yes, at a Wall Street firm, doing general corporate work and a lot of administrative law work, particularly with nuclear power and hydroelectric stuff. We had clients all over the country for whom we did that work. That administrative law work, by the way, has prepared me for the stuff I'm involved with now. I went into a legal services program for a while, then went into teaching. And I served as dean of a couple of law schools around the country. And my wife and I retired here in 1997. Having been all over the country, we chose this area as the most beautiful, quiet.
Yeah, indeed, it used to be.
Yes.
It's still the most beautiful, but holy mackerel, we're sure fighting.
Well, indeed. And became involved locally. My wife has been involved in civic organizations. She was president of LVIS for a few years. She's still active there. Actually, we both are affiliated with the Democratic Party, this being the subject, really, of your program. And about, now it gets to be about 13 years ago, I'm also an officer of a local property owners association, and a group of people got together at that point, pulling together from property owners associations and other civic groups to try to fight airport noise in an organized way. And so that's how I got involved. Several of us were appointed by the McGuinty administration to an organization called the Town Board Airport Noise Abatement Advisory Committee. We worked on that for a number of years, and I think ultimately that was disbanded by the Republican administration, the Wilkinson administration, and several of us got together with an even larger group of East End people, not only in East Hampton, but Southampton also, and formed the Quiet Skies Coalition. As you mentioned, I'm now vice chairman of that organization. We have supporters all over the East End, and our mission has been to try to encourage the local government to take the maximum action that it legally could to relieve the noise problem at the airport. When the Democrats took over after the really scandalous incivility and in general, but also terrible attitudes toward the airport that the Republican administration, the Wilkinson administration, had displayed, the Democrats took over, and just at a key time, when at the end of 2014, because of legalities that we can go into if you wish at some point, the town had the opportunity to actually exercise some access restrictions on the airport that would reduce noise. At the beginning of last year, the new administration appointed 3 committees, a finance committee, subcommittee of their regular business and finance advisory committee, a committee of people affiliated with the aviation industry, and people fighting the noise problems. And several of our people from Quiet Skies Coalition served on the last committee. We worked We met almost every 2 weeks, all year during 2014, working to develop facts and analyze the law and come up with proposals for legislation that the town could enact in 2015 when their opportunity to act arose.
Now that moment that you were talking about was when the FAA, who obviously had a tremendous stranglehold upon our airport, and the FAA, the Federal Airline, what is it? Airport, Federal Air. What does the FAA actually stand for?
Oh, Federal Aviation Administration.
Federal Aviation.
That's some of the complicated legality I referred to before, but let me try to summarize it. Since the 1930s, the federal government, the Congress, has enacted comprehensive aviation control legislation.
And most of that has to do with the fact that you don't want one plane bumping into another. It's to control what goes on in the skies.
Well, it is for safety.
Yes.
But it's also a promotional organization. There was something called the Civil Aviation Organization. I've forgotten what it was originally, but later on it became the Federal Aviation Administration.
Yes, you're right. I do remember that.
Federal Aviation Administration. And the fact is that Congress preempted the comprehensive legislation does something else. In the law, we call it preemption. They preempted the law so that states and localities do not have any authority to control aviation. That's a general rule. Congress has taken it away constitutionally under what's called the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. Now, there are some exceptions to that preemption. One of the key exceptions in the statutes and enforced by the courts, federal courts, is that municipal owners of airports do have the authority as proprietors, as property owners of the airport, to limit access. They can't control what goes on in the air, but they can control who will land, under what circumstances, in order to provide noise abatement, to limit noise for the benefit of the community. Now, those limitations have to be reasonable, non-arbitrary, and non-discriminatory. Those are rules of law. Now, I mentioned that the FAA is not only a regulatory agency, but it is also a promotional agency. One of its jobs is to promote airports, to promote the efficiency of air transportation in the country, things in the national interest. However, one of the ways they promote it is by subsidizing local airports. For construction purposes, for capital improvements, if the owners of airports do things correctly, they can get 90% of the cost of capital improvements. If you'll excuse me a second here. And many airports around the country have applied for these grants, federal grants from the FAA, and East Hampton has done that. If you get a grant, you sign a contract with the FAA. And there are 20 or so what are called grant assurances, conditions of the money that last, most of them last 20 years. Some last longer, but basically the rules that last 20 years. And among those rules is one that if you're a municipal airport proprietor, you waive your rights to impose access restrictions on the airport unless the FAA approves of them.
Oh my.
And over the years, the FAA has never...
Call that a string.
Well, yes. And over the years, the FAA has never willingly approved any significant access restrictions. Okay, that's the reason why until the 31st of December 2014, the town of East Hampton couldn't do much. They had waived their rights. Now, there's another layer of complication here. The last grant that the East Hampton took was in 2001. If you count 20 years from 2001, the grants would expire in 2021. However, an independent group of citizens, not Quiet Skies, but a separate group called the Committee to Stop Airport Expansion, around 2001 or 2002, brought a lawsuit, not against the town, but against the FAA, alleging that the town of East Hampton had improperly made their application, and that the FAA had improperly granted those funds. And that committee had such a strong case that the FAA decided not to try it. They settled it.
Oh.
And among the
Wow, that's wonderful. It goes to show you what community action can do.
Indeed.
When you really apply it in a correct way.
And part of the settlement was to advance the expiration of the key noise abatement provisions to December 31, 2014, instead of December 31, December 31, 2021. Excuse me. That's why the 1st of January this year was such a key time.
Well, I was sort of although I've lived here for 14 years, I was just beginning to become aware in the last few years of the sounds over my head. I never made calls. I will remember, though, I do remember listening to town boards, even going into the last administration, and hearing people from all over the East End coming and talking and complaining. And I thought, oh my God, our airport, which, by the way, the town of East Hampton owns every acre there, and I think it's 350 acres.
Maybe more.
Yeah,
I'm not
maybe
certain.
even more, you're right. Whatever it is, it's a large amount of land that we own that land. We own that airport. That's very important. And that we have control over it is a very, very important thing. So what the town did in 2014 when the grant assurances expired and...
2015.
What?
The town acted in 2015.
Oh, in 2015. Sorry, yeah, it was 2015 they acted, but they expired December the 31st. And what happened was that the supervisor, Larry Cantwell, appointed Kathy Burke-Gonzalez to sort of organize the whole approach of how we would be proceeding with the noise of the airport. And one of the things that she did was form those 3 committees that you mentioned, as well as there were 2 huge meetings that were held here at LTV. I know because I came to all of them, and it wasn't, you couldn't find a parking spot between the 2 places around here, and there's quite a lot of parking around here, but you couldn't find a place. There were over 400 people at one of them from all over. I mean, people, the supervisors of some of the towns on the North Fork came and spoke. And we thought at that time that we were going to proceed with an organized way of stopping some of the unbelievable sounds that are over our heads. And as I mentioned to you, for the first time in my life, I have started calling because I just can't believe it. I can't believe how much, unless they've changed their routes and they're all over my house. Let's go over Phyllis's house. Is there a cry? I have no idea, but it has just been quite an amount of one day between the morning to the 2 or 3 in the morning, I counted 14 aircraft over my head. And I actually wrote them down. And I've started making the calls, and I'm going to give you the number, folks, in case you haven't, because I now have it memorized. And I don't memorize numbers very easily with my dyslexic brain. It's 1-800-376-4817. That is the number you have to remember and you have to call, because this is very important. This is the proof.
It's also possible to do it by email.
Yes, you can do it by email too.
The email is hto@plainnoise.com.
So, where are we right now with our, I know that the town then went ahead and accepted a whole bunch of legislation that they were going to start. Not everything that was suggested by the committee, but enough to have given us some control over the amount of sound that we were going to hear.
Yes, what they enacted, the town board, was a series of curfews. A general curfew, which closes the airport from 11 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. Completely closed.
Well, I'm going to be the person who's going to say that I don't know where those planes are going at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I certainly can hear them on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday nights. You hear them quite loud.
Then there's a second curfew for noisier aircraft from 9 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning. 2 curfews, and they enacted also a limitation of 1 operation per week per aircraft, noisy aircraft, defined scientifically. Limitation. The same helicopter could come in and leave only once a week. Now, as soon as those rules went into effect, the aviation interests brought a lawsuit in federal court. Excuse me. And in the course of that lawsuit, as a preliminary matter, they persuaded the judge to preliminarily enjoin the once-a-week rule. So what's left now are just the curfews.
So the helicopters do not have to respect that once-a-week rule. They can come in as often as they want, as long as they're within the time period of that they're talking about.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's where we are right now. In the meantime, I know that what we have also done, I say we, because I consider myself a member of this town, and as a matter of fact, I've been tilting at the windmill to save East Hampton for a long time. And one of the things they have now is employed another lawyer who is going to go back to this judge or appeal the ruling? Appeal the ruling. Okay.
They've hired one of the country's most distinguished appellate lawyers. Former dean of the Stanford Law School and a partner at a large New York firm.
Aha. I know her name is Sullivan, if I'm not
Kathleen Sullivan.
Yeah, Kathleen Sullivan, yes. Well, we're all putting our money into Kathleen Sullivan's hopper and hope that she can do something to save us, because it is really incredible. As a matter of fact, there is now another group that has been formed. Besides your group, there's another group that has been formed that is representing the entire towns, or all the towns on the East End, to continue to fight about this noise. Obviously, this noise is really getting on the nerves of the people who live here.
Well, of course. And as I indicated earlier, Quiet Skies has supporters in all those towns as well. Some folks think that we're exclusively East Hampton, but we have not focused only on East Hampton, except to the extent that East Hampton is the jurisdiction that has the authority to act, and we've been promoting the action by that town.
And I know that you guys have never ever said that you were out to close the airport. But I'm telling you there are times when I have said to myself, holy mackerel, do we really need this? Because it has been really unbelievable. I mentioned to you one time I was down at Maidstone Beach on a Friday night looking to roll up, take a little nap, and then jump in the water before I went home to do all of the chores that I have to do as the grandmother and mother of a family. And it was just one after the other. One after the other, right over my head. Even when you're in the water swimming, they're over your head.
Well, and our supporters all over, in Noyak, in Southampton, Sag Harbor, the complaints are greater this year than they've ever been. And I think I mentioned earlier that for 4th of July and Memorial Day weekends, Memorial Day had 28% more traffic this year than last year. 4th of July, 52% more. And so the complaints are coming in from all over the East End. Complaints are up very substantially, the official complaints. And the cry that we hear at Quiet Skies, like yours, many people are not complaining officially. They just are screaming. They're beside themselves.
I know. As I said, I never really did it. I never really made the official complaint until this year, because I knew. I said, wait a minute. We've taken steps to control this, and this has gotten worse. What is going on?
One of the things is that, of course, because there are fewer hours, there's a concentration of some of the equipment coming in fewer hours, and so the if they can't come in at 9 o'clock, they come in at 8 o'clock. If they can't come in at 8 o'clock, they come in at 7 o'clock. But the numbers, in addition, on the holidays being worse, and in general not having been reduced very much at all, the concentration makes it worse for the hours when they are flying in. Now, the town, as you've mentioned, has hired one of the best lawyers in the country to take this appeal, and that's a step in the right direction. The town has promised to evaluate the effects of the rules that they put in place by the end of the summer. Excuse me. And they're doing that. But we think that they need to do more. They need to start imposing, for example, as one of our subcommittees recommended, a limitation on the number of equipment that can land and during other periods of time, not just the once a week for the noisiest. There are other things that they can do. By the way, one of although the judge did partially enjoin what the town board did, she made clear that the town does have the authority to impose reasonable, non-discriminatory access restrictions. So we are Quiet Skies is will be urging the town to figure out some more reasonable, non-arbitrary restrictions that can be imposed.
Wow. And so do you think that what do we have to do to get the town to do this?
Well,
scream at our representatives in an election year?
That's one thing, yes. Again, screaming is one thing, but also recognizing that they've done a great deal already.
Absolutely. And I
also,
will say, I know that I have said this before, that Kathy Burke-Gonzalez did a masterful job of organizing this and making it to be an effective, and has listened very carefully to what people have had to say. And there have been people who have... And
this is a democratic program, I may say. Airport noise is not a political, bipartisan issue.
Well, this also isn't completely what you call a democratic show. This show is, although that's not my name and that's how I started, I really am about East Hampton.
But you know, someone once said, a wise person once said that air pollution is very egalitarian. The rich, the poor, the Republicans, the Democrats, they all breathe the same air. Same with noise. And many of our supporters are Republicans as well as Democrats. Unfortunately, in the town of East Hampton, it has become a partisan issue. The nominees for town board, Tom Noble and one of the others, both are outspoken opponents of everything Quiet Skies has been doing. And I understand that they have also announced that they would favor taking more FAA money, which means they would impose 20 years more of the restrictions that we just got out from under.
Oh my, that would be a big mistake.
Yes. Yes.
That would be a big mistake. It took us so long to get out from under the restrictions that we had. And we're fighting this battle, which is really, the result of all of those years in which there were those grant assurances, and we took that FAA money, which allowed this airport to grow into the thing that it is, this uncontrollable hydra that it is. And now we're fighting to rescind this and to bring it back into control so that it's back to what it was, which is a little airport for East Hampton, just for the residents of East Hampton. Reasonable.
Non-discriminatory.
That's right. That's what we're looking for.
Yes.
Thank you, Charles. Always good to hear from you. I know you know it. You really do know the case better than anybody I know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you.